For 2 weeks Nigeria has been rocked by protests that erupted against police violence and evolved into broader anti-government demonstrations led by the country's youth, leading to a deadly crackdown. Young people mobilizing through social media began staging demonstrations calling for the abolition of the Federal Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, which has long been accused of unlawful arrests, torture and extrajudicial killings. The hashtag #EndSARS has been trending not just in Nigeria but across the world for several days. What is SARS? SARS was a special police unit set up in 1984 as Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, battled rising levels of crime and kidnappings. Initially, it was successful in reducing cases of violent crime, but more recently the unit had been turned into banditry. According to Fulani Kwajafa, the man who set up SARS in June 2020, Amnesty International released a report that documented at least 82 cases of torture, ill treatment and extrajudicial execution by SARS between January 2017 and May 2020. What triggered the protests? The protests were sparked by a viral video allegedly showing SARS officers killing a young man in the southern Delta state. Authorities denied the video was real. The man who filmed the video was arrested, provoking even more anger. What are the demands? Tens of thousands of Nigerians have been taking to the streets for more than 2 weeks to protest against police brutality. The demonstrations, headed by the country's youth, evolved into broader anti-government protests that were met with a deadly crackdown. SARS, why are tens of thousands of Nigerians protesting? Tens of thousands of Nigerians have been taking to the streets for more than 2 weeks to protest against police brutality. The hashtag #EndSARS has been trending not just in Nigeria but across the world for several days. For 2 weeks Nigeria has been rocked by protests against police brutality. The demonstrations, headed by the country's youth, evolved into broader anti-government protests that were met with a deadly crackdown. The demands include structural police reforms and better pay for officers so they can be compensated for protecting lives, accountable government, respect for human rights, end of corruption, release of all arrested protesters and justice for all victims of brutality and compensation for their families. Many demonstrators are also calling for more wide-sweeping change in Nigeria, which has the largest number of people living in extreme poverty in the world and a massive youth unemployment rate. It became very clear very quickly that the protest cannot just be about SARS, because the kind of abuses that are documented with SARS Squad are also something that has become part of everyday life of Nigerians in their contact with figures of authority across the board. Annie Ololoku Teraba, Nigerian affairs analyst, told Al Jazeera. The gross inequality which we've seen has meant that the young people going out on streets feel like it is a fight for survival for young people who've been given very little opportunity. The government's response has just been open fire on protesters and they are experiencing that brutality is just making the demands of the protests broaden. Despite massive oil wealth and one of Africa's largest economies, Nigeria's people have high levels of poverty and lack of basic services, as a result of rampant corruption, charge rights groups. How did the government respond? With no signs of protesters backing down, President Muhammadu Buhari stepped in and disbanded the unit. The disbanding of SARS is only the first step in our commitment to extensive police reform in order to ensure that the primary duty of the police and other law enforcement agencies remain